Welcome in to the Rockies Insider. I am your Rockies Insider, Patrick Lyons, and joining me today, my colleague from Just Baseball and from Locked On Padres, Javier Reyes. What's going on today, Javi?
What's going on, Patrick? I am thrilled to be here in enemy territory. Even though it's funny to say enemy territory when you're being surrounded by a graphic that's all purple. Purple's just not usually a nefarious color. It's like, you got Barney, you got Dinger the dinosaur. We love him. We've got, I just feel like it's a nice, kind color. Grapes or whatever they're called, right? It's grapes, right? Grapes are, no, berries. It's yeah. We got purple grapes out there. That's the thing. I don't know what I'm doing, but anyway, I'm really happy to be here, man, and happy to talk some Padres Rockies.
Yeah, we're going to break down the series, catch up on all things Padres, who are red hot right now, one of the best teams in the second half. And it's funny you mentioned the purple that we've got. Royalty. It's a color of royalty, of course, for the Rockies. And the pinstripes that we've got for our graphics. If you're listening to this as a podcast, thank you. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review. We're still waiting for that first review to come through there. Glad to read that out and give you a shout out. But I look at the graphics, so go over on YouTube to take a look at that. And the image that I used in the thumbnail is Fernando Tatis Jr. at Coors Field, rounding third base on a home run, as he's prone to do. But it's the road pinstripes that they have. And I think so many people, I was talking with one of the younger folks in the press during the last homestand, that the Rockies also had road pinstripes. They were gray rather than the sand color that the Padres have, but they were gray with purple pinstripes. And it's been so long that they've been taken out of the rotation that those would be really nice to come back. So whenever I see the Padres road pinstripes, I do get a little jealous there.
I mean, they are majestic. And it's funny, like we had the, 2019, what was it, like a 5-6 year stretch? I forgot how long it was exactly, where they had their, that blue, navy blue, which I'm a big navy blue guy. Blue is my favorite color in general. But it was very, like, a little bit soulless. You know what I mean? It felt like they lost something. And then when they brought back the brown and gold, coincidentally, my first year of hosting Locked On Padres, that was like a really welcome sight. And it was cool to see like a modern spin on the old colors. You know what I mean? Even though they've had some good other uniforms before, it was just cool to have some character, you know what I mean, in some of these things. And I know there's some naysayers out there. I understand. One of them, Ethan Badowski, thinks that the Padres City Connect is the worst uniform in the history of baseball.
I love it.
Which is like, I mean, that tells you a lot about Ethan, I think, and how he constructs his opinions, which the barometer seems to be, how can I be as wrong as possible? Shout out Ethan. We love you so much. But no, really love the uniforms. And I do love the purple, honestly. Purple's good. I mean, it's just, there's something cool about it. I like their City Connects a lot. I know they were a little bit polarizing because it was the green mountains and whatnot, not the purple ones, but all in all, really enjoy those very much because they're unique. Unlike some of the safe, I can't get over the Orioles. The Orioles are boring. The Angels are boring. Like, go for it. You know what I mean, folks? Go for it. Be like A.J. Preller and actually go for it.
Oh, we'll talk plenty about him. Yeah, I talked earlier in the season with Mike Ponarelli, who's the clubhouse manager for the Rockies, about some of these new City Connects coming down the pipeline. If we would see some more purple. In fact, think about the color green in the City Connects. We've only seen the Rockies with the green. We didn't see any team in the City Connect really embrace the purple. The Rays had a liton bit in there. The Mets had a little bit of accent on the purple. So I need to talk with him before the season lets out, get some more background information on how he feels. I think he wants more purple out there, believe it or not. He doesn't necessarily need for the Rockies to kind of be that only team. And so, it's interesting. The navy and white era of the Padres with the bow tie logo, that was kind of what it's called, right? It kind of looked like the bow tie. And I know that the Padres fan base were clamoring to go back to the brown and yellow. And it seemed as if the Padres were waiting to be good and to be relevant again before they brought that back.
Right.
And I say that because Rockies fans are in the same boat with the black vests, or even if you want to say the white vest, because there was a white vest for a period of time, a white pinstripe vest. And so I think the Rockies thinking is, you know what, let's pull those off the market just a little bit. And then when we get good again, possibly in the next couple years with the burgeoning prospects that they got coming up through the pipeline, the black vests will come back. And so it worked for the Padres, could work for the Rockies again.
Yeah. Hey, look, both of our teams, uniforms is not an issue. You know what I mean? That's never going to be something that holds us back. You know, we know how to be fitted out here in Colorado and in San Diego. And I love it. But that's really funny that it's like they were waiting to be good. Like, you know, they signed Manny Machado. They were like, wait, one more year. We got to wait one more year for this. And then they did. And hey, I mean, it's been a weird bunch of years, obviously. It's kind of, they're one of those teams where you can't just say good or bad. Like, there's too many things to discuss in Padres lore over these last 5 years because of your A.J. Prellers. And I know since 2015, technically, but, you know, he was rebuilding back then more so. But there's so much lore. There's so much to unlock about this very weird, all over the place team. And then a Rockies team that is also insanely weird, but in a much different way, I think.
Abnormal way, very much. I do want to preview the series, but you've mentioned the buzzword a couple of times, AJ Preller.
Yeah.
I think what ends up happening here over the final 6 weeks of the season is going to determine everything. And so, you know, things are pointing in the right direction with the Padres in control of their future there as one of the wild card clubs. But even if they do make the playoffs and you know, win a series, win the wild card round, does it feel like AJ Preller's time as the general manager of this team is kind of coming to a close?
It's the big question everyone's wondering, right? Because we know for sure if they miss the playoffs, like that, not know for sure, we don't know anything for sure, but that is pretty much like, yeah, this guy's probably out, especially with new ownership and all the reports that you can read from Dennis Lin and AJ Cassavell that are like, yeah, like they're not super hard committing. And it seems like Peter Seidler, rest in peace, was his biggest advocate. And with him gone now, it's just this team that you're like, how much longer are we going to put up with this? While it is fun, let me be very clear. Even if AJ Preller were to be fired, I will forever love the man because at the bottom line, he gave me content and got me excited for a team that has never had that. This is not the Yankees. This is not a big market team whatsoever. So for them to be changed into this team that now has the reputation of making crazy, you know, big splashy moves, that alone is just a lot of fun as a fan experience, especially if you're not someone who, you know, has a myopic view of sports where you're like, it's either win or lose. Instead, you're like, hey, man, I kind of enjoyed the ride. You know what I mean? I kind of enjoyed the experience. I think that at the very minimum, AJ Preller deserves a lot of credit for that. But you know, if they were to miss the playoffs, which it looks like they probably won't at this rate, right? They're like 6 games up of the next team that would take the wild card spot. Like it looks like they're good there. They might even be in contention for the division. The question is going to be, if you lose in the wild card, is that going to be it? If you lose in the divisional round, is that going to be it? And in fairness, while that sounds harsh, this is a team that since 2015, its most games that it's won is 89. And that's not bad, but considering all the moves, all the budget, it's not exactly a great resume to be like, yeah, we won 89 games once and we made a playoff run twice. Right, like that's not all that impressive. This has been a very inconsistent core and team overall over these many years. Yeah, they're electric now, but remember last year, one of the least clutch, biggest choke jobs in Major League Baseball history, along with the New York Mets last year too. But like if you literally pull up, as I've done before, Fangraphs' clutch rating, they had the third worst one since 1996. Right. And they like that's how bad they were. And the two teams who were worse made the playoffs, the Dodgers, and I believe it was the Royals or something like that, or Guardians, I think it was. And, you know, so you take all that into account. You fired Bob Melvin. Okay. Looks like Mike Schultz working out just fine, but he was the one that had the highest win total of 89 games 2 years ago. So this has been, it's one of those things where more flash than substance, I think, is the big critique for AJ Preller. So while I will love him no matter what, that's the big question. And frankly, Patrick, I don't know. I can't get a view on, even if they win the wild card series, if they just lose in divisional rounds, like, is that enough? I don't really know because this is a team that's built for now. It's not like they're a upstart, you know, Orioles or D-backs team where it's like, yeah, if you guys lose in the first round, it's okay. Because guess what? You have all these other prospects come up. You're young. It was unexpected. This team's supposed to make a run. So that's the big question. I've been talking a lot, so I'll leave it at that.
No, it's really true. You've touched on so many interesting things there as far as the entertainment factor of being able to cover this team or being a fan. We were talking before we started recording this idea that, you know, when you get to the off season, you know the Padres are going to be sniffing around everywhere. And if there's like a mystery team, Padres fans and Padres community can go, we might be that mystery team because why not? Sure. Yeah. All right. There's a weird rumor about someone inquiring on Aaron Judge in a trade. Was it AJ Preller? I'm just going to pretend that it was AJ Preller because why not, right? And as you said, that makes it entertaining. That allows you to get through each day, despite the fact that maybe the win loss total isn't where
Mhm.
you want it to be. And that's kind of been the opposite, I think, for a lot of Rockies fans. It's definitely gotten a lot better over the last year. Despite the fact that the Rockies lost 100 games in 2023 for the first time in franchise history, that was a season that was way more fun to cover than 2022
Mhm.
because you had the emergence of Ezekiel Tovar, Bretton Doyle, Nolan Jones. And then this year, there have been some new faces in the crowd with Jordan Beck, and then the farm system coming up from behind. So there is some hope there. There is some potential. But as you put it, their window is right now because
Mhm.
so many of their guys are locked up long term, but
Mhm.
so many of those pieces around the fringe are going to be gone
Yeah.
very soon. Hassan Kim, Tanner Scott, free agents this offseason. And then you got Luis Arias, Dylan Cease, and Michael King, free agents after 2025.
Mhm.
And with so many of those key players that you think about as being with the Padres for so long, that you have to add to that still. And they're making so much money that, where can the payroll actually go if
Mhm.
you've got a stars and scrubs approach? Now they're still a little bit balanced, but it's going to be hard to see how they're going to be able to continue this going forward through 2025, especially considering that their farm system has definitely taken a hit. And
Yeah.
despite they have got two really good prospects, and we'll
Yeah.
get to them later on in the show, they've got a way to go. And you also don't want to really trade those guys.
Yeah. It's one of the things that I've been talking about on the show is I'm not someone who's like, I don't want to trade prospects because I think Ethan Salas is the next Buster Posey. It's not that. It's that you have assets, you have wiggle room. That's what prospects let you do. So you can adjust, you can make trades, or it's just a reinforcement you can call up. It feels better to rely on that and just have a little bit more flexibility as opposed to locking everyone in. Oh, Jay Cronenworth had a couple of lock him in, sign him into an extension. And this would get me killed by the Padres fans, thankfully we're on the lovely Rockies Insider podcast. So maybe they're hiding or something like that. Maybe they won't see me. So, but like I'm against the idea of extending Jackson Merrill already. You have him for a few more years,
You
and
don't need
you
to
are.
do that.
And unlike other teams, this is what's so fascinating about the Padres. Usually, what if I were to say that, people would be like, "Oh, stop! You're defending billionaires." But the Padres are actually spending a lot of money. So unlike your Orioles, unlike your Guardians, and my loathsome, I hate them so much, the Milwaukee Brewers. I actually think it's totally fair to be like, yeah, they traded Juan Soto, but they're still going for it. Usually, teams make those trades because they don't want to pay the star anymore, right? So I think that what we're having here is this team that's got just a lot of stuff riding on this season, even though they have all these guys signed long term. And by the way, some of their long term contracts have been a little hit or miss, right? Tatis, great when he's healthy for the most part. Unfortunately, he has an injury that he's dealing with right now. And last year, he was healthy for the last season, but he was coming off the injury and the suspension. And then you have Manny Machado, started off dreadful this year, probably due to injury. Xander Bogaerts started off dreadful this year. So some of the guys they have signed long term, they're also older. So do you like if you're seeing Manny Machado potentially have that bad start? Now I do think it was injury related for him, but Xander Bogaerts decrease in hard hit rate every year for the past like 4 seasons. He's only going to get older, right? So it becomes this question. You Darvish, he's only going to get older. It's a team that makes you nervous when you look at the bigger picture beyond. But for right now, it's great. But for beyond that, I'm like Patrick, man, I'm nervous. It could get really bad. It could become the Angels. It's not impossible that this team looks a lot like the Angels. And that's why I'm adamant that wait on Jackson Merrill. Let's see. I understand we can get him for cheaper now. But sorry, guys. Guess what happens when you sign Bogarts, Machado, Tatis, Musgrove, Darvish, Suarez, and all these guys? You have to manage it well because then you'll be in a situation where I'll bring up 2010, 11 Phillies. Remember when they had all those guys that were once great, but they were getting paid so much and they kind of just had to sit there and wait for a while because you couldn't do anything with them? That's the position you could be if you're not careful with the Padres.
And you hit the nail on the head with the Phillies there because they ended up giving a long-term extension to Ryan Howard when they
Mm-hmm.
didn't need to. He had already had an extension. The Rockies did the same thing with Troy Tulowitzki, and slightly different scenario there, but
Right.
his contract became too much, and that's where that trade ended up coming out of in 2015. And so you've got Jackson Merrill, who is now getting himself into the conversation for National League Rookie of the Year award. It's going to be hard to overcome a generational talent like a Paul Skeens, but in the conversation of extending someone like Jackson Merrill, I find it to be somewhat similar different as well, but similar
Mhm.
to Brenton Doyle, another great center fielder.
Mhm.
Those two guys going head to head as far as the Gold Glove Award in center
Yeah.
field, maybe even the Silver Slugger Award as well.
Mhm.
Both those guys really similar in their skill set, I think, in many ways. But you don't need to give Jackson Merrill an extension.
Mhm.
Okay, I think most people would agree with that. Then
Mhm.
should you give him an extension? There's many reasons of why
Yeah.
you should, but
Mhm.
here's why you shouldn't. You don't need to yet. You
Yeah.
don't need to guarantee him $100+ million for an age 28 season that you don't even know if he's going to make it to. You
Mhm.
don't need to lock up a guy in that same way. It doesn't benefit you. The risk reward is just not there. I think it's even more true for a Brenton Doyle who's already 26 years old. If you were to give him an extension going forward, do you really want the 31, 32, age 33 season of Brenton Doyle when he's still developing? And I think you can look and say, hey, I think he's going to still have a long career. He might be very similar to a Charlie Blackmon, but that's a lot of risk for maybe only a little bit of a reward. So you
Mhm.
don't need to do it. Should you do it? Okay, but here's why you shouldn't. And if the shouldn'ts are just too much, then you just wait. You just
Mhm.
wait another year, and then you can still get it done in another year or two. Your price goes up a little bit, but you can still get that deal done.
Absolutely, man. And in the case, just to reiterate one more time, like in the case of the Padres, some people will say, "Oh, but come on, man, let's spend." And it's like, but they are. A
Yeah,
lot of teams that usually have this discussion of whether or not they should extend the rookie are like in bottom of payroll. So then I'm like, yeah, do it. What are you doing? Like, take that shot. That's okay. You'll get him for a lot less. So it has that, but it's like, well, the Padres have a lot of money allocated, and that's part of the reason they had to get rid of Soto. That's the thing with Padres fans. It's almost like everyone's forgetting that. And by the way, I remember when Nick Castellanos was the one everyone wanted for the Padres. Guess what? They waited. Things happen, and then Juan Soto becomes available. That's another thing. None of this stuff is set in stone. That's one of the things I don't like about baseball fans. Everyone acts like the numbers, it's like my pet peeve. Everyone acts like the numbers and your WRC plus and your hard hit rate and your barrels and your makeup and this and that nothing will change. No
it's
one's ever
gospel.
going to get better. No
Yeah.
pitchers are going to get better. In the 21st century, when everybody's got an iPad and they can press a couple buttons and pull up all these graphs and whatnot, you think that they're not going to just find out new ways to attack? All these people would have said, extend Trent Grisham. Remember Trent Grisham's first year? He was amazing for the Padres. He was like the top. He had like 3 wins above replacement in 60 games. He was unbelievable. All-star, Gold Glover, hit for a lot of power, got on base, stole bases. You extend that guy, look where you're at. So it's important to remember there have been players that have been good on their initial season. Hey, former Padre Will Myers wins the Rookie of the Year. If you extended him long term after that, you might not have been so happy. So I just want to emphasize with everybody that things change. And another player, like I just mentioned, like Juan Soto, could become available. So you don't want to lock in everything. You lock in some. You need to spend money. I wholeheartedly believe with that, and I disagree with some other people of this lovely website who have said, oh no, there's no, guaranteed route to winning. I really do believe you need to spend it in order to actually win a World Series. You have to be careful, man, because then all of a sudden you're gonna get stuck, you're gonna get locked in, and it's not a guarantee. I love Merrill. I really do. I think that he's gifted in a lot of ways. But am I gonna put money on it that he's a guaranteed 130 WRC plus guy every year for the next 10 years? No. Things happen, injuries happen, pitchers get better. It
And
makes
that's
me
not a
nervous, man.
knock, right?
It's
That's
not
not
at
a
all.
knock on
Yeah.
Jackson Merrill that I
Mhm,
think that people don't realize is just reading the tea leaves and saying, hey, in the history of time,
mhm.
there are plenty of guys that just life beats them down and you say, shoot, we invested in this guy when we didn't need to. Again, it goes back to that need piece, right? And so just wait and see. There's no rush. I know you want to do right. You can still do
Mhm.
right by a guy and say, hey, look, we'll give you guaranteed money for the next 3 years. So we'll buy
Yeah.
out your first year of arbitration. So
Mhm,
now you're not playing for the league minimum. So you can still do right
mhm,
without really, putting yourself out there on a line. You
mm,
mentioned the Juan Soto trade.
mhm,
Overall, now that some time has passed, not a ton of time, but enough where you say, well, you know what? It allowed them to do the
mhm,
Juan Soto trade. You were able to get Luis Reyes. That's been so for them. In general, trading a generational player like Juan Soto in this period of time
mhm.
seems like it's been okay. But what about overall when you look at the package of prospects that you originally had to give up with the James Wood and the Robert Hassel II and the CJ Abrams? Sorry, I
Yeah.
might be triggering you. My apologies. But overall, the
Yeah.
whole Juan Soto saga, while it's trending up right now, if you had to give it a win or a loss, where would you have it?
So what I've been saying I'm so glad you asked this question. What I've been saying for a while is I think that the Padres won the trade of Juan Soto to the Yankees. However, they lost in the sense that they ever had to get in that position in the first place. So given that they were in a position where, yep, Sadler's gone, we're cutting back on payroll, we have to trade Soto. I really do think that I think both teams could have won the trade. I think it's totally fine, especially with how good he's been for the Yankees this year. That not only did you get some nice depth pieces and Randy Vasquez and Johnny Brito. Brito, I think, could be a starter in the future, a back end guy. Vasquez, maybe a long inning reliever. He's something. These are young guys with potential. They're young too. That's what I like too. It means that their ceiling isn't necessarily for sure certain. You have that. Then you got Kyle Higashioka, just a great backup catcher who's now just the starting catcher and almost has 2 wins above replacement, 120 WRC plus or something like that this year. He's been great. And then here's the key. Michael King, low key, has been one of the best pitchers in the sport, or at least the National League, since June. Quality start guaranteed almost all the time. And then you got Drew Thorpe, who was then used to get Dylan Cease. So ostensibly, you got Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito, starting catcher Kyle Higashioka, and Dylan Cease and Michael King for Juan Soto. That's as good a return I have seen for a superstar in ages, with the exception of the Juan Soto Nationals trade, which is the only thing that might have been a better deal than what the Padres gave up. Because not only, all right, Suzuna, whatever, I don't know too much about him. We'll see. Has Robert Hassel. It looks like Preller was right about that. He's sold high on Robert Hassel because that guy is not nearly as highly regarded as he once was. But James Wood, just baseball's number one prospect before he got called up, right? Like absolutely kills it. He's coming up. He's going to be awesome. And I had actually heard from some people in the Padres organization that are like, they might regret that one, man. That dude's going to be good. So they lost him. They lost CJ Abrams, who, yeah, he started off poor his first year, but guess what? He's a little lad. He looks young. Look at his face. You know what I mean? The guy looks super young. And now he's hitting for power too with the Nationals too. And then Mackenzie Gore, who has molded into not necessarily an ace, but a very quality 1-3. I think he still has upside to go better than that, but that's 3 high impact players that you got that are controllable for a long time. And you got a year and a half of Juan Soto. If they extended him and they kept him, it's a win for both sides. But since they don't, it's a loss. I'm sorry. Like 1.5 years with no World Series appearance. I'm sorry. It's just hard to go with that. Don't get me wrong. Was it a total loss? They beat the so-called, the people that apparently run the sport, the Dodgers. That's what I've been told. Anyway, I don't really get it. I don't know why.
Know about that for sure.
Yeah, it's like cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you guys definitely run the sport. Congrats on losing in the first round every year. They did beat them. They beat the Mets that year. They had a great run, but still, it leaves you disappointed because you're like, man, those were a lot of good players and assets. Hey, we traded Trey Turner once upon a time. He's a pretty good player last time I checked, so that's not good. So I think all in all, it's a loss because not a massive loss because you actually lost Soto. It's a win what you actually got back for him from the Yankees, but it's also a loss that you had to trade him in the first place. So it's that weird gray area I think that the Padres are operating in. But at least for right now, the vibes are great because I really don't think they've given the Padres, national media or whatever, enough credit for how much of a great return Preller got from the Yankees, considering that they had to trade this guy.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the knocks that some people will have, at least in Denver, because the Rockies have not figured out how to win. They've not figured out the formula. They've had a formula that worked once, and they continue to go back to the well with the homegrown players and developing their own guys and getting them ready for Coors Field. And that has worked. I would love for them to try to find other strategies to work and not just say there's only one way to do it. That's never a good thing. But the knock on the Padres is, well, look, they traded away all these prospects that had all this buzz, and look at how many of them never really developed into to something good. And to that, I say, that's why you trade them, because a lot of prospects end up being suspects. So the prospect capital, the asset of that player and the hope and the hype, you can utilize that to better your big league squad. And that's what it's all about, is having a better big league team and trying to get to the postseason, go to the World Series. And that's a huge element to it. Whether or not you even lost a trade, did you make your big league team better? And anytime you add someone like a Juan Soto, you're obviously a lot better. Now
Mhm.
let's jump into the weekend series. We've got
Yeah.
a series preview. Your old friend, Cal Quantrill, former Padre,
Yes.
against knuckleballer Matt Waldron. A knuckleball at altitude. I love
Mhm.
that. On Saturday, Bradley Blaylock in his second Rocky start against Dylan Cease on Todd Helton Day. That should be interesting. The vibes in the ballpark are going to be
Mhm.
pretty intense, pretty great.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if Dylan Cease can kind of work through that in I'm not going to say a playoff type environment, but definitely an environment that is not pro Padres in any way. And then on
Yeah.
Sunday, Kyle Freeland versus Joe Musgrove. I
Mhm.
like that matchup.
That's
Rockies,
my most anticipated one. That's the one
that's
I'm
the
looking
one.
forward to the most. Yeah. I want to see how Musgrove is. Just got back off the IL. He's had a tumultuous last 15 months or so because on top of, the injury, he was good last year until he got hurt. Then he was shut down in late August, comes back this year, gets roughed up a lot, is surrendering home runs left and right. Everyone's like, what's going on? Goes on the IL. So we're like, oh, that explains it. Then comes back off the IL, makes like 2 starts, then goes back on the IL. Just really worrisome for you to get shut down so long ago and then so quickly into the season you have to go on the IL again. That's almost never a good sign. But hopefully, his velocity's been picking up a little bit. They need him. I really do believe that they need him to be good because I think if they get regular Joe Musgrove back, even with the ascension of King and Cease, I could see him starting game 1 of a playoff series because he's kind of the heart and soul of this Padres pitching staff through the first no-hitter in franchise history, right? San Diego native. He's got the Java Joe nickname. He just has a vibe to him that's like he's kind of the leader. It really feels like he's the leader of that team in a lot of ways. So really hoping that he can deliver a solid start. It'll be tough though. Coors is always tough, but I know that's not like the blockbuster one, Kyle Freeland, Joe Musgrove. Like everyone wants to see Cease and the Todd Helton Day and all that, but that's the one that I'm paying attention to the most. And I think Padres fans, that's the biggest key for what can you learn from this series. It'll be Joe Musgrove start. I'm really excited for that one.
Who's the player on the Padres that Rockies fans should be looking out for? So
Mm-hmm.
there's obviously the star players, and you go, yeah,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
Tatis is up, that's dangerous. Might even say that still about Jake Cronenworth, despite him being somewhat of a
Mm-hmm.
shell of himself. For the Rockies, it's Jake Cave. Every rally starts with a Jake
Mm-hmm.
Cave, which if you're not following the Rockies, you're going, who's this fourth outfielder? You can kind of breathe a sigh of relief and
Mm-hmm.
start looking ahead a couple spots in the lineup to a Charlie Blackmon or a Ryan McMahon or Brenton Doyle. No, you have to make sure you shut down Jake Cave, or else that will be the first domino in your demise. Who is that guy or guys for the Padres that when they come up, you may need to hold your breath a little bit more than you might have originally anticipated?
So I think that maybe 3 weeks ago, I might have been able to say Jackson Merrill. But I think everyone knows now, right? Like he's won single-handedly them like 9 games, 9 game-winning plays, or whatever the heck the stats are. So he's not eligible anymore. I think it's pretty straightforward. It is 2 guys. It is the one that we already talked about, and Kyle Higashioka. Low key this year has been hitting 116 WRC plus. That will play, especially out of your catcher, who you're mostly getting your defense from. Very, very good. Like you said, we already know the stars. The next one is the player who's 4th on the team at WRC plus, a player that it is absolutely. I tweet this every single time. Anyone could follow me, by the way. I'd have a opinion if you want. I tweet this every time he comes up and he does something. It is Donovan Solano. That's the one to watch out for, having one of his better seasons in terms of his slash line that he's had over the past few, which says a lot because he's been good. 126 WRC plus this year. He's slashing 308, 358, 429. He's been a stud. He's just a hitter. He's basically kind of what like we wanted from Luis Arraez, who I understand is dealing a little bit with an injury right now. That's why he's been not his usual crazy slap hitting self. But Donovan Solano is just one of those guys. Like how was he a free agent? I understand he's 36 years old, but he has shown no signs of fundamentally not being able to hit ever since 2019. So it didn't make sense to me. They just picked him up. They were like, all right, well, we have issues. We don't know who we're going to sign. We don't have a lot of money. Picked up Donovan Solano. He's been excellent. So I'd say it's those 2 in terms of the lineup that people have to watch out for. Although I do imagine they have some pitchers too that are interesting. But yeah, man, those are the 2 to watch out for. Solano been very clutch in big moments as well. Higgy can hit it out, so especially in Coors Field, I'd be looking out for that. I think he's actually leading the team technically in slugging right now, if I'm not mistaken. I think I don't have it in front of me, but yeah, those are the 2 to watch out for.
And Solano has a lot of experience at Coors Field with his days with the Giants. I can remember a couple of
Mm-hmm.
times him having some big games, and when the
Mm-hmm.
Giants have just absolutely dominated the Rockies in the past. Before we get you out of here, I do want to mention two things. One, pick your brain. Ethan Salas, number one prospect. First off, what's his ETA? Do you think this young teenage catcher who had a cup of coffee in Double-A last year
Mm-hmm.
at 17? When do you think Ethan Salas arrives for the Padres? And Leo Dallas DeVries, 17-year-old
Mm-hmm.
shortstop. Some people, do you think in a couple years' time, maybe even a year from now, the Padres could have two top 10 in all of baseball prospects with Ethan Salas, who the only chance he's out of the top 10 is he debuts and loses his eligibility,
Mm-hmm.
and then Leo Dallas DeVries? Could both those guys be there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will say that, and I agree with Aram Layton, who we both know, co-founder of Just Baseball, his prospect list, he put, DeVries at number 15 and he put Salas at number 62. I really do think that the Salas thing, looking back, I think people got a little bit too excited. He's awesome. Don't get me wrong. He's a fun prospect, but he was like a 17-year-old kid where a lot of it was based on projecting instead of what he actually did, like on the field. He doesn't have like a high WRC plus in the minors. So it's just going to take him some time, but still it's incredible that he's up where he is at just 17, 18 years old. Like that is incredible. Don't get me wrong. DeVries, on the other hand, I think DeVries is why it's basically a guarantee that Ha-Seong Kim is leaving this offseason. Because, I mean, why would you? If you have a top-level shortstop prospect who's already, and unlike Salas, is actually showing something already at his age. So I wouldn't be shocked. Remember that the Padres are a team known for expediting prospect call-ups. They did it with CJ Abrams, even though they had Ha-Seong Kim, right? Like they do it even if they have players that they think can be there. Jackson Merrill, another one. Not only did they expedite his process, he changed positions, right? So it's not impossible, but I think Salas is the one that you're going to have to wait a little bit on. I just think he's a lot more raw. Very exciting. Catcher of the future. I get it, but I think he's a little bit raw, and I don't think they're going to rush him. DeVries, though, it would not shock me if heading into next year, they're like, you know what? He looks great. We'll call him up because this is just what they've done before. I wouldn't do it, but I could absolutely see that becoming a thing. But I'm excited about both of them. At least, despite their farm system taking a hit, they at least have these two like golden egg, type of guys to look back on. And you're like, okay, at least we can be excited from there. And funny enough, Patrick, let's be real here. Based on recent history, the Padres farm system will somehow, by the end of next year, have 4 top 10 prospects again, or top 100 prospects again. They just keep regenerating like they're Wolverine. This, whatever they trade away, whatever they get hit with, it just grows back almost instantaneously. I don't know how they do it. Look at all the trades they've made. Preller is
I'll be
something.
suspicious if they have a top prospect that they develop named Adam Antium. I'll say, wait a minute, there's something to this Wolverine theory. This. Oh, he can throw both righty and lefty, and he can play outfield, and he can catch. Something's not right about that. Yeah, Jackson Merrill, 19 years old at low A in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And then here we are 2 years later. He's in the majors, spent 46 games at Double-A in 2023. So you're right. They will expedite these players up really quickly. So that's just such an interesting element that they play with. And I think a lot of other teams have finally come around to that and give those opportunities for those young players. All right, before we get you out of here, Padre or Rocky? I got 3 names of players who spent,
oh God,
I'm not going to say significant time, but they spent about the same amount of time with the Rockies or Padres.
Mm-hmm.
And you can claim the guy, or you can push him over to the Rockies side. Let me know what you think.
Mm-hmm.
First up, Matt Kemp hit 46 home runs in 2 seasons with the Padres, only hit 6 home runs with the Rockies. But I have a feeling that you might not want to necessarily claim him as a Padre and try to shove him over our way.
So I will say, I'll say a couple things. I think that if I went like mental gymnastics, I would be like, you know why he's a Padre? Because he symbolized the beginning of the Preller era, that crazy offseason. I could make that case, but I think all in all, Padres fans don't look back on the players. They look back on the trades of being like, wow, that was really fun that we did. Like my friend, who I know who got me into the Padres in the first place. Shout out my guy, Drew, who told me, he's like, I don't care how many prospects we gave up. I'm just happy we did something. It's fun. It was just a really exciting thing. But I think that's irrespective of the players. Nobody is like that high on Justin Upton, even though he was pretty good for them. Craig Kimbrell, those type of guys. I would have to give the Rockies this one. I just think that he was overall better. And I think people are remembering, oh man, I wouldn't have minded to keep some of those prospects back then. I appreciate the James Shields trade. That one turned out okay. But other than that, I don't know. So I'm going to give him to the Rockies just this one.
Oh, yeah. I think Rockies fans would say, you know what? He's neither of ours. He's definitely a Dodger.
Yeah.
No one saw Matt Kemp play in person. It was the pandemic season in 2020.
Mhm.
So he's certainly a player that will go down in 5-10 years. Even now, I think for a lot of fans go, who's someone who was a Rocky that you might have forgotten? Kevin Pillar is there because he was on the Rockies in 2020, and same thing with Matt Kemp. Don't forget Derek Norris. Come on, Derek Norris was really good there for a while. He was one of those guys from that 15 team.
Oh, I got love for Derek Norris, man. I got love. He was like one of the best
Same.
Padres catchers somehow of the last few years.
Oh yeah. All right. The next two, I think one of us are going to fight to keep this guy in our stable. So maybe we'll split. The next one, Houston Street. Now, closer for both teams.
Ooh.
Closer for both teams. Now, with the Rockies, 3.50 ERA, 84 saves, 3.1 wins above replacement, according to Baseball Reference, was their closer in 2009. Then he gets traded to the Padres for 3 seasons, 2.03 ERA, 80 saves, 3.8 wins above replacement. So 4 less saves, a little bit more value, according to WAR. ERA was a significant amount higher, but still pretty good for a Rockies reliever. What are your thoughts on Houston Street? Is he a Padre or is he a Rocky?
So on the one hand, I think he was better with the Padres in some regard. I think that the 2.2 FIP he had in 2012 speaks to that. Just an unbelievably low ERA at 1.85. I feel like a lot of people were surprised a little bit that trade worked out as good as it did for them, especially in 2012. This is tough. This is tough for me because
Here, let me give you a little more information.
Yeah. What else
that
we
might
got?
help. He never reached postseason with the Padres. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And though he did with the Rockies in 2009, he did lose 2 of those games versus the Phillies in the NLDS.
Ooh.
So again, Rockies fans have good, solid memories of Houston Street. I recognize him as one of the greatest closers that the franchise has ever had. But if you're just looking at 2009, that might stick in your craw just a little bit.
So is it like because of his legacy, it's like not looked on well the way like Chargers fans hate Nate Kading or whatever? Like, or is it like the way that Eric Hosmer belongs to the Royals in a good way, and then he belongs to the Padres in a bad way? Like we all remember Eric Hosmer, like we view him as a Padre. So I think that's, it depends on your definition of it. Like just who was better. Like he made the playoffs, like you said, but then blew it in a lot of ways. So
all right, you know what? Don't answer yet, because I'll give you the second person.
Okay.
And then you can choose between the two, because all 3 of these are really close.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Kemp, okay, he's not a Rocky or a Padre in that way. And we know
not.
he's a Dodger, but
he's a Dodger,
sometimes fan bases can say, hey, he's also ours. We've got that in Denver with Peyton Manning, where despite a long career with the Colts, you're like, he's a Bronco. We're going to kind of claim him, even
exactly.
though another fan base also can stake claim to him. So, all right, Houston Street, again, he's very well received for the Rockies. They don't really remember. Rockies fans are very forgiving of folks. So throw out the 2009 postseason. So last but not least, you'll have to decide with Houston Street and this other person. Is this person a Rocky or a Padre? Bud Black. Now, parts of 9 seasons, he was the manager of the Padres. He took them to game 163, lost that, unfortunately, in 2007, when we all know and could see very clearly with our own eyes, Matt Holliday touched home plate. I think we can all agree on that, right, Javi?
Yeah, sure.
477 winning percentage, 649 wins. Winning percentage is only at 451 with Colorado, only 520 wins in his 8 seasons so far, but did take the Rockies to 2 postseasons, and they were in back-to-back years, the only time in Rockies franchise history. So, Javi, is Bud Black a Rocky or a Padre?
Before this age of Preller, he was responsible. I think it was, I'm going to say 2009 or 2010. I forgot which one, for, going into at least having a good record, frankly. Like, that was nice. Even if I don't remember if they made the playoffs back then. Yeah, I don't think they made it in 2010. I can't remember. I think I'm gonna go with he's a Rocky. I will. I can't remember if no, this is too early for Myers. Was it? I feel like there was a lot of Padres fans that really couldn't stand Bud Black. Green was another one I believe they couldn't really stand, and frankly, Green I would claim just because the Will Myers Fortnite incident was fantastic. Just for anybody who doesn't remember, he live on Fortnite basically complained about Andy Green making them run sprints in September, and then he was like, "Oh crap!" and then he got in a lot of trouble for that. I got to give it to the Rockies because you actually went somewhere. I think that I know that they lost, but you got to at least give it to them because you went somewhere, and I think that matters.
Yeah, I think that elevates, and that just takes you to a different tier, and it discards in many ways. Hey, back-to-back 100 loss seasons. Is he going to come back in 2025? Probably. Could that be another 100 loss seasons? Possibly. But again, you look at the heights and you say, okay, he lost more games than he won with the Rockies versus the Padres. Did not maybe win as many games, but you took the team and the franchise to heights in which they had never seen. So I guess that means by default, Houston Street is a Padre.
Nah, I'm going to say he's a Rocky.
Oh,
you know why?
Man.
You know why? Because when we're talking about closers, who the heck remembers closers unless they are obscene? Who remembers closers for teams that aren't good? You know what I mean? I know he blew it for the Rockies, but at least it was for a team that mattered. 2012 Padres, they won 70 games. Their best player was Carlos Quentin and Chase Headley. Oh yeah, was that the obscene Chase Headley season? I think it was. Yeah, I think 2012. All right, so that Padres team was at least memorable for that. You know what I mean? That he's memorable for was the obscene, crazy second half that Chase Headley had, where he had 30 home runs or whatever it was. But yeah, I don't think that season mattered. You know what I mean? So it's great. Love the name too. Houston Street's a great name especially for a closer. But I got to give it to the Rockies. I know he blew it, but I think he's yours for better or worse. I think he belongs to the Rockies.
You mentioned a name there, and I love it's so much easier with NL West teams where I can lob a Padres question at you, and then it ties back into the Rockies in some way, some shape or form. And I don't know if that's just my job as a host here. But you mentioned a name there, and it reminds me of a moment. I think it was last season. Warren Schaefer, who's the third base coach, he loves trivia, and so whenever I'm at the ballpark, we'll kind of go back and forth with trivia questions. And so I asked him this one last year, and he got it right. I said, okay, who in the history of baseball has the most home runs for a player whose last name starts with the letter Q? And he thought about it. He said Carlos Quentin, and he absolutely nailed it.
Awesome.
He nailed it. So people remember he was a dude for a minute. He was a dude.
Look, and again, this is just to tie back full circle. What did we say? Guys have been great for a minute. It's totally possible for you to just have your cup of coffee and just be an okay, good player like that. There's nothing wrong with that. So don't project too much. Guys get better and they get worse and things change. But shout out Carlos Quentin. Is Cal Quantrill a Padre or a Rocky? Is that question something we can have at this point?
Might be.
He's a Rocky, by the way. He's a Rocky. You know why?
In a way, yeah, he does.
He's a Rocky for what reason? That video against whoever it was.
The Red Sox, Reese McGuire.
Come on. That made him a Rocky for life, as far as I'm concerned.
He's been a pleasure to cover this year. He's been a bright spot. I've written about him a couple of times. Peter Apple loves some Cal Quantrill as well from Just Baseball. So he's been good. Well, since you were kind enough to push Houston Street, Bud Black to the Rockies side, we won't debate. I'll just go ahead and give you Alexi Amarista. So you can have that one there, and we won't fight. He almost made the list. I was like, oh, it was only 1 year in 2017. He was like, all right, if I can bring one guy over from San Diego, I'm going to take Alexi Amarista. Okay, but if that's the guy you want, and hey, they did go to the postseason the 1 year Alexi Amarista was on the squad. So
one of the great names to shout, Alexei. It's just such a fun name to shout. Was really bad for the Padres from what I remember, but even still, thank you. I appreciate it. We love him very much over here, I guess, in San Diego, back during the dark times. It's really weird looking up those old Padres lineups, by the way. It'll always throw you for a loop. Even as early as 2017, you could go and it'd be like, wow, you're alive? Like you guys made it? You're still kicking? That's what it's like.
Yeah, even 15 years on from the 2007 Rocktober team, Rockies fans just have this reverence for
Rocktober.
players where they just get excited. And then other players too, like Jason Giambi is one where I think
Yeah.
on Thursday, it was the anniversary of a walk-off home run in 2011. And people just, they love the Jason Giambi era, also rocking the black vest. So I know remember when is one of the lowest forms of conversation for baseball people. I don't think it is. I think that's the one exception is, hey, do you remember this guy? Do you remember that? That's fun for
Mhm.
baseball fans.
I think that I sometimes disagree with that conventional wisdom too, because my thing is like, what's the easiest way to start a conversation with someone? Remember when? You know what I mean? It's how you start to become friends with people you don't know in the first place. So I might even disagree with that. Whoever, whatever philosopher, said that or whatever it was, But no, all in all, I mean, both of our teams have had some really fun stars that have unfortunately not had their best years with our teams. Justin Morneau just came to mind for the Rockies, although he was okay for them one year. I remember him hitting a lot of home runs. But it happens every now and then. And I think both of our teams, for better or worse, there's always something I think usually to talk about.
Oh yeah.
Usually, you know, for better or worse. And I'm really grateful for that.
It's making me think of some kind of spin-off series or something I'll have to do one of these days at the ballpark of just going up to random fans and just saying names and seeing their reaction and
Yeah.
just Brett Hop and then okay and then Clint Armas. Okay, and like they almost like they figure out what I have to do. Oh, I just got to say a bunch of things
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
remember. I'm just going to throw a name. Alexi Amarista. Okay. Pat Valleca. Oh, all right. Well, let me tell you about Pat Valleca. I've got a story for you. And like
Yeah.
that could be interesting. Spring training would also be a good time for that because you get folks
Mhm.
that really remember way back when, and they also you can engage with players a little bit more so down at spring training. So thanks for sparking an idea. We'll see if something actually happens with it. I know plenty is going to happen with you on Locked On Padres. Go ahead and plug away, Javi. All the places people can check out your very educated and very passionate work.
Thank you so much, man. You can check me out on Twitter, first of all, at Javipeno, Javiiipeno, the best handle in the game, just to be modest for a second. Also at L_Padres, and just search up Locked On Padres. You'll find it wherever you want your podcast from. We've been on a real good vibe lately, real good swing lately. So it's been a lot of fun talking about the team. Feel free to send me your questions. Also, check out my podcast with Just Baseball and my writing for Just Baseball. But my podcast is called Baseball versus the World, which is just fun, very silly, evergreen topics. Next show is going to be about assigning a movie to explain every team's current mindset. And we're also going to be doing the fictional baseball player draft, all that sort of stuff, just for an idea. Go check that out. You'll have a lot of fun.
I will have to send my submissions to you, and anyone can probably send their submissions to you if your DMs are open for what
Yeah,
movie
absolutely.
would best describe the Colorado
The
Rockies.
DMs are indeed open, can confirm. So feel free to shoot whatever nonsense or great kernels of knowledge my way.
If it was going to be a movie about the Padres farm system, it might be The Purge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's my submission. That's my contributions to that show.
Thank you.
Now I gotta listen for my shout out. Let's see
Yeah.
if I made the cut, like where all the submissions came from. Thank you. At Patrick D Lyons on Twitter, at Patrick D Lyons MLB on TikTok, where you can lambaste me for my Shohei Ohtani hatred. It wasn't hate, but I was being critical of Shohei Ohtani, and people they didn't like the fact that I said, hey, he's not playing defense. That's part of the conversation. And they had to
Oh
inform
no.
me. Yeah, they
How
had to
dare
inform me
you?
about his surgery. I guess I didn't know about it apparently, but that did astronomical views. So at Patrick D Lyons MLB over on TikTok, at Rockies_insider, also on X. Thanks for listening to the pod, watching the show. Javi, thank you for joining us and giving us a little bit of momentum because look, you know what they say about momentum? It's only as good as your next show. So I'll talk to you then.